Now that we've got the shell of our building completed, let's close this camera view. If you want to save this camera view and be able to return to it but close it for now, you can always use the Save Active Camera tool. For now, we don't need to save it, so I'll go ahead and click on the X here in the title bar and say no, I don't want to save this. We'll go down to the first floor level, and here, before I start designing my kitchen, I may want to change the active annotation set and the active layer set. The active annotation set will determine how my text and dimensions appear. We'll discuss more about annotation sets a little bit later in our series. For now, we'll use one of the annotation sets that Chief has provided for us. We'll use the NKBA annotations. The NKBA annotation set is created so that when you print this kitchen plan to a larger size, 1/2 inch equals a foot rather than 1/4 inch equals a foot, the text will read properly. The other thing that I want to do is change the active layer set. Right now we're on the default layer set. I'll change this to the kitchen and bath layer set the Chief has provided. I'll open up the display options. In this layer set, all of the layers that are not relevant to kitchen and bath design are turned off. For instance, the terrain layers and the framing layers. But all of the cabinet layers are turned on. I may want to make a small change to this. For instance, I'll turn off the electrical layer for now. We'll go ahead and click OK, and then we'll start using our cabinet tools to design our kitchen. Now remember, you have 5 different toolbar configurations here. The default toolbar configuration provides these tools in the second toolbar. These are all your basic building tools. But in the basic building tools, you do have cabinet tools. You can, if you like, use the kitchen and bath toolbar configuration. This will give you more tools specific to designing a kitchen or a bath. For now, we'll simply use the default toolbar configuration, and we'll go up here to our Cabinet Tools parent tool. In the Cabinet Tools, you have your base cabinet, your wall cabinet, your full height cabinet, as well as the soffit tool, the shelf tool, the partition tool, the custom countertop, and the custom hole in countertop. We'll start here by placing a base cabinet. I'll select the base cabinet tool and then simply click in the plan to place the cabinet. Then we'll take a camera view of this cabinet. By default, this cabinet is placed as a 24-inch wide by 24-inch deep by 36-inch high cabinet with a single drawer at the top and a single door at the bottom. The countertop is a dark gray soapstone. The backsplash is a 4-inch high white tile backsplash. Again, these are set up in your defaults. To easily get to the defaults for your cabinets, you can double-click here on the Cabinet tool. That will open up the defaults specific to your cabinets. If I double-click here on Base Cabinets, it'll open up the Base Cabinet defaults. This is where you can make changes to the cabinet that your Base Cabinet tool is going to place. But there is another easy way to change the defaults for your base cabinet. I want to change the material of my countertop. So I'll go here to my library browser, open up the Chief Architect Core Catalogs, and then the Materials folder, and then scroll down to Masonry and Stone, the Stone subfolder, and then the Marble subfolder. And here we'll go to Grays. I'll click on the folder to see what all of these materials look like. We'll select the Gray Stone Marble, and when you're in the library browser and you select a material without any tools active, it'll automatically activate your Material Paint tool, as indicated by the small spray can that follows my cursor. With the Material Paint tool active, I can just click on a surface to apply the material that I've selected out of my library browser. Now that I've changed the material of the countertop, I can set this as the default base cabinet. If I select that base cabinet and go down here to my Edit toolbar, I can select Set as Default. That'll change my base cabinet defaults. Now when I use that base cabinet tool to place another cabinet, it'll place one with my new material. I'll go ahead and close the library browser, and we'll go back to the floor plan view. When I begin designing a kitchen, the first thing I want to do is place any freestanding appliances and my corner cabinets. So here I'll go back up to my base cabinet, and I want to place a base cabinet here in the corner. If I click now, it'll place the default base cabinet. However, if I move my cursor into the corner before I click to place it, Chief will automatically convert it to a corner cabinet. The default for the corner cabinet is the angle front cabinet. I'll double click on this cabinet, and down here at the bottom under Options, I have the option to uncheck the diagonal door, in which case it'll place a blind corner cabinet. You also have the option in your corner cabinets to add a Lazy Susan, either to the diagonal door or to the blind corner cabinet. You can also create your own blind corner cabinet. I'll go ahead and place a base cabinet up against this wall, and then open the cabinet specification dialog and change the width. For a blind corner cabinet, the width has to be wider than the depth. So I'll change this to 42 inches wide. Hit my Tab key to see that my preview pane updates, and then click OK. Now I'm going to push this right into the corner. For my blind corner cabinet, I'll select my base cabinet again, and this time I'll place one on this wall, and make sure to bump it right up against my 42-inch cabinet. Now that that cabinet is bumped right up to the face of this cabinet, Chief has automatically created a blind corner cabinet. In other words, the width of this door has changed so that this side of this base cabinet is blank. Automatic blind corner cabinets like this is an option that you can change in your defaults. I'll go to my cabinet defaults and then to General Cabinet, and you can see that I have options here to create automatic fillers between cabinets that are closer than 3 inches apart, and to create automatic blind corner cabinets. If this is unchecked, this cabinet would not have converted to a blind corner. I'll leave this box checked and click OK. And then go back to my floor plan view. So let's go ahead and place an angle front corner cabinet. Go to my Cabinet Tools, select my base cabinet, and again move my cursor into the corner to create my corner cabinet. Then I'll place another one right next to this, making sure that that's bumped directly up against my cabinet. I'll place another one here. This one I'll change the size to 21 inches. If your cabinets are not bumped directly up against each other, you'll notice that you'll have more than one dotted line which indicates the cabinet connections. So again, I'll make sure to push that right up against and bump it up against the corner cabinet. Now I want to make a change on my corner cabinet. So I'll go here to the Materials panel, and under my Recessed Panel Door, the panel part of the door, this interior part, I'll select this and go to Select Materials, and then go to Library Materials, close the Colors folder, and go to Glass and Glazing. Open up the Transparent Glass folder and select the Standard Glass. Now if we take a look at our full camera, you can see that I have a glass door on the front of this cabinet. Now I want to create my sink base. So I'll go ahead and place another base cabinet right up next to this one. And I'm going to open this one up, and I'm going to change the width to 30 inches. Then we can go to the Library Browser and go into the Chief Architect Core Catalogs, and under the Architectural folder, under the Fixtures subfolder, you'll find Sinks, and then we'll go to the Kitchen Sink folder. And in here you can find drop-in, undermount, and without fixtures. We'll go here to the undermount, and I'll select the double undermount narrow. Now the sinks that are listed in the Library Browser don't have a size on them. So what you might want to do is select the sink that you want to use, and then just place it out in the floor. You'll get a message box that lets you know that this symbol was intended to place in a cabinet, but you can place it as a freestanding object. I'll go ahead and click on Yes, and then I'll double click on this sink that I've placed out in the middle of the room. The width of this is 30 and 11/16 of an inch. So for this to fit in my cabinet, I would have to make my cabinet a little bit wider. I'll make my cabinet here 33 inches wide. Now I can select that sink and simply click on the cabinet that it was intended to be placed in. Chief will automatically make it part of that cabinet. If I double click now on this cabinet, you can see that the sink is actually a component of the cabinet itself. And this first object is no longer a drawer, but a false drawer. Now, if I wanted to remove the sink, I can click on the cabinet, in which case it's going to select the base cabinet first, and you can tell by looking at the bottom left-hand corner of your screen at your status bar, you can see that you have a hold of the base cabinet. To select the sink, I'll simply hit my Tab key. That will now select the sink, and I can hit my Delete key to remove it. In this particular case, what I really want is to place an apron front sink. So we'll go to the apron front folder here in my sinks, and I'll select the apron front sink that I want to use. And again, just place it out in the middle of the floor. Double click on it to check the size. The width of this apron front sink is 29.5 inches wide. So my cabinet really only needs to be 30 inches wide. But there's a couple of other changes I want to make to this. I'm going to remove the drawer so that it's just two doors. So I'll click on the door here in the preview pane. That'll take me automatically to the front, sides, and back panel. And as you can see here, this is listing the components of the front of this cabinet. The first component is right underneath the countertop. You have a separation. The item height, the separation height, is 3/4 of an inch. The drawer is the second component. Then you have another separation between the drawer and the door. Then you have your auto right door, and then the separation between the door and the toe kick. So here I'm going to select the drawer and then click on the Delete button to remove it. The door will automatically adjust in height to take up the space. So now I simply have one separation above the door, and a separation below it. The other thing that I want to do here is remove the countertop itself, because the apron front sink will sit right on the cabinet. So I'll go to the General panel, and under Countertop Thickness, I'll make this a 0. Once I've removed the countertop, you can see that the backsplash has automatically been removed. The next thing I want to do is actually lower the top of this cabinet down a little, because the apron front sink has about an 8-inch depth. So here under Height, I want to remove about 8.5 inches. You could do the math yourself, or simply have Chief do the math for you by typing in minus 8.5 for 8.5 inches. When I hit my Tab key, you can see that the height has adjusted. Now that my cabinet is built for my apron front, I'll go ahead and click OK. Make sure that that cabinet is bumped right up against the cabinet next to it. We'll remove this one from the middle of the floor. And again, select the apron front sink and place it right on top of this cabinet. We'll take a look again with a full camera. That's looking pretty good. We'll go back to the floor plan view and then place another cabinet next to it. Go to your cabinet tools, your base cabinet, and place a cabinet here. Now this cabinet, we want to make a special cabinet. We'll go back to the camera view and double click on the cabinet itself. In the base cabinet specification, you have the option here to change the type of cabinet. Right now it's a standard cabinet. You also have the option for your corner cabinet. If you want to create a corner cabinet but you're not placing it into the corner of a room, you have the option here in your specification dialog. You also have the options for right end cabinet, left end cabinet. The left end cabinet will have an angled front and an angled side that angle back towards the wall. You also have options for right end radius or left end radius, which will curve the cabinet back towards the wall, or a peninsula radius, or an angled front. When you create an angled front, you will have a depth for the left side and the right side. If I change the front to, let's say, 12 inches depth, it'll angle the front to meet that depth. You also have the bow front option. This will curve the front. Once you've curved the front, you have the option here to change the full depth of the cabinet as well as the bow depth itself. Here I want to create a left end cabinet and go ahead and click OK. Back in my floor plan view, I want to place one more base cabinet here. Double click on this base cabinet, and here I want to remove the drawer again, so we'll select the drawer and click on Delete. Then under the General panel, I'll just change the width to 12 inches. and again push it right up against the cabinet next to it. I'll go ahead and close the camera view, and now let's place our range. Back here in the library browser, I'll go to the Chief Architect Core Catalogs under Architectural, close the Fixtures file, and go to the Appliances file. We'll scroll down a little ways to the freestanding ranges and select a range here. I'll place this one right up against the wall and bump it right up against the cabinet. I'll place another base cabinet right next to it, and this one I'll open up and change the width to 36 inches. Now notice what happens to this door when I change the width to 36 inches and then hit the Tab key. This door now is an automatic double door. That's because if I select this door, you'll notice that this says Door Auto Right. With the Auto Right or Auto Left door, when the cabinet is wider than 30 inches, the door will change to a double door. You also have the option to make it a door left or a door right, in which case it won't change to a double door. Another option you have in your base cabinets is to add the backsplash. Under the General category, you can see here that under backsplash we have a 4-inch default backsplash. If I don't want a backsplash on my base cabinet at all, I can simply make this backsplash a 0. But we'll leave it at the default. To change this back to the default, I'll type in a D and then hit my Tab key. The next thing I want to place here is my refrigerator next to my cabinet. So I'll go ahead and close the Ranges folder and go into Refrigerators, and I'm going to go into the standard size, and here we'll select the single refrigerator and then just place it right next to this cabinet, bump it right up against it. And then I'm going to place a full height cabinet, a utility cabinet here on the side. So I'll go to the Cabinet Tools parent tool and we'll use the full height cabinet. So in your cabinet tools you have your base cabinet, your wall cabinets, and your full height cabinet. I'll go ahead and place this full height cabinet right in this corner and then double click on it, and we're going to make this a 39-inch wide cabinet. And I'm going to bump this up against the refrigerator. And when I select the side of this, you can see here my temporary dimension says 1.5 inches. That's going to be perfect. And then what Chief will do automatically for me, because of that default setting, is it'll place a filler between the wall and the cabinet itself. Now I'm going to double click on this cabinet, and I want to make the entire cabinet 99 inches tall and the width at 39. The depth we'll leave at 24, and then I want to change some of these face items. The double door here at the top, I want to make a 63-inch high door. So I'll select that door here in the preview pane, and that'll take me right to the front, sides, and back panel. And that component number 2 door, the auto right door, I'm going to change this height to 63 inches. And then hit my Tab key. Now remember to always hit your Tab key. That'll update this preview pane and you can make sure you're getting the results you expected. And then this object, I'm going to go ahead and turn this into a drawer. But what I really want here is 3 drawers. So I'll select this one object and I'm going to split this object horizontally. And then split this other one again. And then start at the top here. I want to change this height to 8.25. Hit my Tab key to make sure it's moving down. Select the next one, change this one to 10 inches. And then this one will be 10 inches as well. I'll go ahead and click OK here. And then let's take a camera view of our kitchen to see what this looks like so far. That's looking pretty good. Now we need to add some wall cabinets. Now you can, in the camera view, design your kitchen. If I go here to the wall cabinet and just place a wall cabinet on the wall, you can do this here in a 3D camera view. Another way that might be more precise is either to place your cabinets in your floor plan view or with a wall elevation. So up here you have your 2 view tools. You have your camera view tools, which are your perspective view tools, and you have your orthographic view tools. We've used the cross-section elevation and the back-clipped cross-section. You also have the wall elevation tool. This is the one that you're going to use for all of your interior elevations. It works just like the other two in that you place the camera, by clicking in your floor plan and then drag your cursor towards the object that you want to see in your view. So I'm going to drag it toward this wall to get the wall elevation. The wall elevation camera only sees the view inside of this one room, between the two walls and between the ceiling and the finished floor. And again, you can design your kitchen in your elevation view. So I'll go to my cabinet tools and I'll place a wall cabinet above this one. And then I'm going to double click on this cabinet and I'm going to make some changes here. The most common height of my wall cabinets is going to be 45 inches tall. And then finished floor to the top is 99 inches. That's the height that I made my full height cabinet. So finished floor to the bottom is going to be 54. Now I want to change the width of this cabinet to 30 inches. And my most common wall cabinet is going to have glass doors. So I'll go here to the materials panel and go here again to my recessed panel door, to the panel part of the door, go to select materials, and here I'm going to go to plan materials. I could go to library materials, which, as I said before, is like going to Home Depot. You can go shop for a new material, and Chief gives you all of the options that are in the Chief Architect core catalogs. Or, in this case, I can go to plan materials, because I've already used the material that I'm going to use here in this plan. So whatever I've already used in this plan will be under plan materials. And you'll notice here the list of all the materials used, and the check mark in the in use column indicates the materials that are currently being used in the plan. Those without check marks are no longer being used. You can purge out the unused materials by clicking on the Purge button. Now I'm going to go down to glass, and I'm going to use the standard glass that I used in the lower cabinet. Go ahead and click OK, and then click OK here. Now it doesn't look like much has changed, but let's check this view with a different render technique. I'm going to go to the standard render technique, which will show the texture property of the materials. And you can see here that I have glass in my upper cabinet. Another thing that you can do with your cabinets is if I select this Auto Right Door component, I have the option to specify the shelves. I'll click here on Specify, and I want to manually edit the number of shelves that I'm using and the spacing between them. Here I'm just going to change the number of shelves to 3. When I hit my Tab key, it'll evenly space those 3 shelves. If I wanted a different spacing, I can select each one of the shelves. So this is going to be shelf number 1, this one here. And the spacing from the previous, which is going to be the bottom here, I can change this number. And then select shelf number 2. Change that number from previous, which is this shelf, and so on. I can change each of the shelves individually. I'll go ahead and click OK here, and click OK here. Now I want this cabinet to be bumped right up against the refrigerator. Another thing that I want to do to this cabinet is I want to add crown molding. So I'll go to the Moldings panel here and click on Add New. We'll go into the Chief Architect Core Catalogs, go into the Architectural folder, into Moldings, into Crown Moldings. If I click on the folder here, you can see what all of these profiles look like, and you can select it that way. I'm going to use the CA20 and click OK. Now the CA20 will come in by default as 1 5/16 by 1 1/16. I'm going to change the size of this molding to 4 inches by 2 inches. And then you'll notice here in the preview pane that the molding is flush with the top of the cabinet. So the molding itself is actually coming down in front of the face of the door. So I'll need to offset that. I need to push that up. So we'll use the vertical offset here and offset it the same amount as the height of the molding itself. But we're going to use a negative number. I'll type in -4 and then hit my Tab key, and you can see now that my molding comes up to the top of the cabinet. The other thing you'll notice here is that with the cabinet you have the option for the backsplash. If I go to the General panel here, you have an option here for backsplash to base below. I'm going to uncheck this box because I don't want there to be a backsplash below my upper cabinets. I'm going to create a custom backsplash. So I'll leave that as it is. Now this is going to be my most common cabinet, so when I click OK, I want to set this as my default. So I'll go to my Edit toolbar and Set as Default. I also want to remove the 4-inch backsplash for all the base cabinets. So I'll go up here to my defaults and go into my cabinets and my base cabinet. And here the backsplash is set at 4 inches. So I want to change this to 0 inches. Now when you change a default in your base cabinet defaults, some of these defaults will change the objects that are already in your plan. This is called a dynamic default. Some of the defaults that you can set are not dynamic. They will not change what's already been set in the plan. If I change the backsplash to 0 inches and click OK and click on Done, you'll notice that it did change all of the cabinets I've already placed. That's a dynamic default. Now I want to copy this cabinet to the opposite side of the stove. So I'm going to select that cabinet. I'm going to use my Copy Paste tool and then my Reflect About subtool. When I click on this and move my cursor into the screen, it's looking for an object to center or mirror on. If I click now on the stove, it will copy that cabinet mirrored exactly in the center of the range, right over to the other side. Then I want to add another cabinet on this side. So I'll go to my Cabinet Tools and my Wall Cabinet and place a cabinet right up against this wall. This one I'm going to just use the side edit handle and bump that right up against the cabinet next to it. Now this cabinet is going to be a little bit different. I want to add an appliance garage underneath it. So I'll double click on this cabinet and the appliance garage is actually going to be part of this cabinet. So the total height of my cabinet is going to be 63 inches. When I hit my Tab key, I want to make sure that the finished floor to the top is level with the rest of my cabinet, so that's going to be at 99 inches. Hit my Tab key again and you'll notice that the finished floor to the bottom is 36 inches. That'll make it sit right on top of my base cabinets, which are 36 inches tall. Now I'm going to select this auto right door and I'm going to split this horizontally so I have two different components. Then the height of the double door at the top is going to be 43¼ inches. When I hit my Tab key, you can see that this one is now smaller. I'm going to go ahead and change this to a simple door panel. But I want to change the door panel, so I'll go to the library browser. You'll get an information box that's letting me know that this feature is intended for multiple door or drawer styles. That's exactly what I want. I'm going to go ahead and click OK, and then go into the Chief Architect Core Catalogs, the Architectural subfolder, and Doors and Drawers subfolder. And in here I have a Specialty Storage subfolder, and I want to select this Appliance Garage. That's going to give me this tambour door, and I'll go ahead and click OK here. That looks perfect. I have my Appliance Garage. The only thing I want to change is instead of glass doors on this, I want this to sort of balance the room and use this white panel like my full height cabinet. So instead of opening up that specification dialog again, I'm simply going to use my eyedropper tool. When you first click on the eyedropper tool, you're going to select the material that you want to use. So I'll click here on this panel because that's the material I want to use. The tool changes to my Material Paint tool. Now I can click on this object and change the material, but I'll want to check first the mode with which I'm using this material paint. Right now it's going to paint one component of the object that I select because this one's checked. You can also select Object to paint the entire object and all its components. Or you can select Room, which will change the material you're replacing on all objects in the room. Or you can replace that material on the entire floor or in the entire plan. I'm simply going to change one component. You also have the Blend Color with Materials tool. If this is checked, it will take the color that you've selected and blend it with the texture of the material you're clicking on. If it's not checked, it'll simply change that material to a flat color. I'll go ahead and click on the panel now, and now my panels are going to be white, just like they are over here. I'll go ahead and hit my space bar to let go of the Material Paint tool, and then I need to place one more cabinet above the refrigerator. So I'll go to my Cabinet Tools and my Wall Cabinet and place a cabinet right above the refrigerator. Now this is giving me a message that I'm trying to place an object that's in conflict with another object. I'll go ahead and place it anyway, and then I'll simply make an adjustment to the height by selecting it, and I can find my edit handle here at the bottom and move that up to change that to an 18-inch high cabinet. Now I need to add molding to my full height cabinet. Because this is a different cabinet type, it's not going to follow the default for the molding that I've set for the wall cabinets. So I'll double click on this cabinet, go to the Moldings panel, Add New, go into my Chief Architect Core catalog in the Molding folder, into the Crown Moldings, and again I'm going to select my CA20 molding, and then change the size to 4 inches high and 2 inches in depth, and change that vertical offset again so that it sits on top of the cabinet to a -4. Now all my wall cabinets are done. We'll go back to the floor plan now, and I want to add a hood above my stove. So in my library browser, I'm going to type in hood. Now when it does the search for hoods, it's going to find anything using the word hood. If you see objects that start with a number, that's an indication that this is coming out of a manufacturer catalog. So I'm going to scroll down here until I find hoods with a generic name. And then I'll right-click on one of these and click on Show in Browser. This will open up the folder where I can find all of the hoods similar to the one I've selected. I'll go ahead and click on the large folder, and we'll select this wall canopy hood. And then I'll just click right here in front of the stove. The first thing I want to do is make sure that this is centered perfectly on my stove. So I'll select it and use my Center Object tool, the 2 blue arrows pointing at each other. When I click on this tool, as I move my cursor around, Chief is finding different objects to center that hood on. I want to make sure to hover over the range until I get that vertical center line. Click so that I know that my hood is perfectly centered over the range. Then I'll select the hood and simply move it back to bump it up against the wall behind the range. Now let's take a look at our camera view. That's looking pretty good. The next thing I need to do is add a custom backsplash. To create a custom backsplash, we'll go to the wall elevation. Here in the wall elevation, we'll go back to the Cabinet Tools Parent tool and use the Custom Backsplash tool. This tool works 2 different ways. With this tool active, I can click and drag to form a rectangular backsplash. Once I've got it formed on the wall, I can select it and then edit it and shape it with the edit handles. It's a polyline based object, so we can use these edit handles to shape it, curve it, break the lines, and edit it into any shape we want. The other way that this tool works is to click on the tool and then simply click between the wall cabinets and the base cabinets. Chief will automatically place a backsplash covering the spaces between the cabinets. Again, you can edit this in any way you want to. But for now, this custom backsplash works just fine. We'll take a look again in that camera view. The next thing we need to do is simply add a window above the sink. Here in the camera view, I'll select the window and then place a window right above a counter. And notice that the height of the window adjusted to allow for the cabinet below it. Now I want to select that window and center it on the cabinet under the apron front sink. And then we'll open it up and make some changes here. I want this to be a triple casement window. I'll change the width to 60 inches and the height to 40 inches. I'll go ahead and close this camera for now, and back here in the wall elevation, I'll change this render technique back to the vector view render technique. Now let's add some dimensions and some notes to our elevation view. We've worked a little bit with our manual dimension tools and our automatic dimension tools. Under the automatic dimension tools, you do have automatic elevation dimensions. If I click on the NKBA Auto Elevation Dimensions, Chief will automatically place dimensions according to the defaults set up in the NKBA annotation set. An annotation set is a group of defaults that determine how your text and dimensions will look in your plan. Once you've placed your automatic dimensions, you can edit them. For instance, if I don't want the dimension for the countertop, I can simply select the diamond-shaped edit handle at the countertop, drag it away from anything on the plan to remove it. Now I want to make a small edit to the hood. I'll select the hood and I want to extend it to go to the ceiling. So we use this edit handle and drag it right up to the ceiling line. Now let's add some notes to our elevation. I'll go up to the Text Tool Parent tool. In the text tools, you have the text with a leader line, you have rich text, plain text, the text line with arrow, as well as callouts and markers. I'll go ahead and use the text with leader line. With the text with leader line, the first step is to draw the arrow. So here on the tile, I'll click and drag to start my arrow. Once the arrow is drawn, I'll click at the end of the arrow, and as soon as I do, Chief will open up the Rich Text Specification dialog. Here I can type in the note that I want to place. Once you've placed a note, you can edit it by selecting the text box, double-clicking to open up the text editor. What I want to do here is go to the Appearance pane and add a fill behind the text. I'll leave it as white and click OK. That makes my text a little more obvious. If you want nothing but an arrow, you can use the text line with arrow. With this tool, you'll click where you want to start your leader line and then drag out to where you want the arrow head. I'll go ahead and save this camera. Once you've saved a camera, you can find it again in the Project browser. Right next to your Library Browser button at the top of your screen, you have your Project browser. In your Project browser, you have saved cameras. You also have saved cross-sections. The elevations, including wall elevations, will be found under cross-sections. You can rename the cross-sections by clicking on the name and then typing in a new one. Then you can close the elevation and it's saved. You can always return to it by double-clicking on the camera in the list, or by double-clicking on the camera icon in the floor plan. You can also change the way the camera icon looks in the floor plan. If I select it by clicking on it once and use my Open Object tool to open the camera specification dialog, note if you double-click on that camera icon, it will actually open the camera view itself. So to edit the camera icon, you'll need to use your Open Object tool. You can rename it here. You can change the way it's displayed in Plan View. Here I'm going to change the callout label. I'll use the small arrow on the camera label. I'll leave it as centered, and under Label, I'll suppress the label, which is actually the name underneath the camera. So now I have a simple camera icon indicating my elevation view. I also have this camera saved in here, and for now I'm going to go ahead and delete this and then move the kitchen room label out of the way, and I'm going to build a kitchen island. Again, I'm going to use my cabinet tools, my base cabinet. When you place a cabinet and then select it, you'll notice this arrow. The arrow on the cabinet indicates the front of the cabinet. In this case, I want the front of the cabinet to face the range, so I use the triangle edit handle and rotate it around so it's facing the other way. This cabinet I'm just going to change to a 30-inch wide. I'll leave everything else as it is, and then place another cabinet right up next to it. Leave that one as 24. Place another one, make this one 30 inches as well, and then I want to place a bar sink in this cabinet. So I'll open up my library browser, close the appliances, and go into the Fixtures folder, and into Sinks, and into Bar Sinks. And I'll just use this simple square undermount and place it in this cabinet. And then we'll take a camera view of this from the back of the cabinet. And what I want on the back side here is two panels. So in the floor plan view, I'm going to use my cabinet tool again, my base cabinet, place a cabinet right up against the back side of this one, and here I'm going to make this cabinet 6 inches deep only, and then double click on it. And I'm going to make the width 42 inches wide, and I'm going to delete the drawer and simply place a door panel here. And I'm going to remove the toe kick altogether. So we'll go to the general panel, and here for the toe kick I'll just make this as 0 and click OK. And then move that up to align it, and then let's copy it over to this side, and then take a look again at the camera view. So now I have what looks like a simple double panel on the back side. The next thing I want to do is change the countertop. And there's a couple of ways you can do this. I could go to my Cabinet Tools parent tool and use my Custom Countertop tool. Or I can select one of my cabinets, and in my toolbar here at the bottom I can convert the countertop to a custom countertop. What this does is it will, in essence, disconnect the countertop from the cabinet. This is now an independent object. And I'll just go ahead and stretch this right over the entire cabinet, give it a little bit of an overhang. Check out that camera view again. And notice here that even though this is a custom countertop, the sink has automatically placed that hole in the countertop for me. Now this edge I'm going to pull out for a little bit of a breakfast bar. Here we'll use a dimension, then select that edge and select the dimension to move it to 4 inches past the edge of the cabinet. And then I want to round these corners. Now by default these are already rounded, so I'll use my intersect join two lines and remove the filleted corner. Then I'll radius that edge again. I'll select this edge of my custom countertop, click on my Fillet Lines tool, and then click on the Set Fillet Radius tool. Set this radius to 2 inches, click OK, and then select the edge that I want to fillet to. And do the same for this one. Select this edge again, click on my Fillet tool, and here I don't have to set the fillet, it's already set, so I'll just select the edge I want to fillet it to. Then we'll curve this line by selecting the edge and then clicking on Change Line to Arc. So now if I take a look at that camera view again, I now have a breakfast bar with a rounded edge. Now I'll use a couple of dimensions to make sure that my island is placed exactly where I want it. I'll go ahead and select all of these objects, use this dimension, and move it right into place. And then let's check that camera view again, and our kitchen looks pretty good. Now we need to add some lighting and electrical outlets. For now, let's go ahead and close this camera view. So before we start adding electrical, let's make our electrical annotation set active, and that'll automatically make our electrical layer set active. Again, that'll turn off layers that are not relevant to electrical, like the cabinet labels. To add electrical, we can go up to our Electrical Tools parent tool. In the electrical tools, you have your 110 outlet, your 220 outlet, your light tool, a switch tool, the automatically place outlets, and the electrical connections. You can place a 110 outlet by selecting the tool and simply clicking against a wall. If you click on the floor away from a wall, it'll place a floor outlet. You also have the 220 volt outlet for large appliances. You also have the light tool. To place a light, you'll simply click on it and either click out in the middle of the room for a ceiling light, or you can click up against a wall to place a wall-mounted light. We'll take a look at this with a camera view. As you can see, where I've placed it out in the middle of the room, it placed a recessed downlight. On the wall, it placed this cylinder sconce. Again, these are objects that are set up in your defaults. You choose the light fixtures that the light tool will place. I'll go ahead and delete this light fixture. And then you also have in your Electrical Tools parent tool, you have switches as well as auto place outlets. If I click on auto place outlets and then click out in the middle of a room, it'll place outlets around that room and place them a maximum of 6 feet apart on the wall. And you'll notice here that Chief recognizes this is a kitchen and that it's going to require GFCI outlets, so it's placed those above the counters. And if we go back to that camera, you can see that the light fixtures are placed at a height that allows for the cabinets. Once you've placed them, you can move them. Just select them and move them. I'll go ahead and place a light fixture here above our apron front sink, and then we'll move this fixture over a bit. And then we'll add another outlet behind the refrigerator. I'll go ahead and close this camera view. We've already placed one recessed downlight here. Now I want to copy them across the room. For this, I'm going to use my multiple copy tool. This tool is very handy for making multiple copies of an object at a specific distance apart. I'll go ahead and click on the multiple copy tool. I'll set the interval for the general objects. My light fixture is going to be a general object. In the primary offset, it'll copy these 42 inches on center, but I also have a secondary offset of 36. I'll leave these as they are and click OK. To copy an object in the primary direction, I can left-click on the object with my multiple copy tool still active, and then drag in that primary direction. If I want to use the primary and secondary options, I'll go ahead and undo this. I'll select that light again, click on my multiple copy tool here in my edit bar, and then right-click on the object and drag in the primary direction first. You can go any direction, whether it's across or down or even at an angle. I'll use the primary direction as right and left on my screen, and then I'll let go of my right-click button, but my multiple copy tool is still active. Now I'll move in the secondary direction. As I go down my screen, it's copying all of those objects in the secondary direction according to the interval that I've set. And then I'll click where I want it to stop. Now I want to delete these 4 lights in the middle. So if I select my light tool and then hold down my shift key and click and drag a box, because the light tool is active, it'll only select those light fixtures. Now I'll hit the delete key to remove them. You have additional light fixtures in your library browser. I want to place some pendant lights above my kitchen island. So I'll go into my Chief Architect Core Catalogs, into the Architectural folder, and down to Lighting. In the Lighting folder, I have options for chandeliers, fluorescent lights, table lamps, and here I've got pendant lights. I'll click on the folder to see my selection. Here I'll use this twisted pendant. I'll place it right at the center point of that middle cabinet. I can tell it's snapping to the center point because I see the red snap indicator circle. Now I'll select this light, and this time I'll use my copy-paste tool. Once I've selected my copy-paste tool, there's already a copy on top of the one that we see. So I'll just simply click and drag to move the copy, and as I'm dragging it, before I let go of my mouse key, I'll hit my Tab key. This will open up the Intercoordinates dialog. Here I can copy it to a very specific distance. I want to go to the left, so in the X direction I'll type in a -24. Then I'll select the original light fixture again, copy-paste tool, click to drag it, hit my Tab key, and this time I want to go to the right, so I'll type a +24 inches in the X position. Now I want to place a couple of light switches, so I'll go back to my Electrical Tools parent tool and use the switch. I'm actually going to place 2 switches, one next to this sliding glass door and one next to this opening. Now I'm going to use my Electrical Connection tool. The Electrical Connection tool simply draws an arc that'll indicate the connection between the light switches and the lights. I'll go ahead and connect all of these lights together just by clicking and dragging from one light to the next. And then I'll connect this last light to this second switch. But when I do, watch what happens to the switch. As soon as it's connected to a bunch of lights in line, it'll convert to a 3-way switch. Once you've placed your electrical connections, you can adjust the arc of the lines by selecting them and just use the diamond edit handle to change the arc. Then I'll add connections for these last couple of lights. You also have additional electrical fixtures as well as mechanical and plumbing fixtures in the Mechanical, Electrical, and Plumbing folder. If we go into here, there's an electrical folder. Here you'll find special outlets and jacks, like phone jacks or data jacks, and specialty symbols like thermostats. Take some time and explore these additional folders in your Chief Architect Core Catalog. Another thing we might want to do is create an electrical legend. To do this, I'll create a separate detail page. I'll go to my project browser, and here under the New Project Plan, I have a folder for CAD details. If I right-click on CAD details, I can click on New CAD Detail. Then I'll rename this Electrical Legend. That will open up a 2D CAD page. This is not a 3D object, and you won't see it in your floor plan view, but it is saved with your floor plan in this CAD Details folder. Now I'll go to the Library browser, and in the Chief Architect Core Catalogs, I'll go to CAD Blocks. And under the Notes and Legends, and the Legends subfolder, I have an electrical legend. This is simply 2D lines, CAD blocks, and text. If you want to edit it, you can select it and explode it, because right now all of these CAD objects are glued together as one object. Now that I've exploded it, all of the 2D objects, including the CAD lines and text, are on layers that are not displayed. Remember that I'm still in the electrical layer set. So we'll go here to the 1/4 inch scale annotations and just to the default layer set. That'll turn on all of the layers, including the text layer and the CAD default layer. Now we can send this electrical legend to the layout independent of the floor plan. You could actually create your own electrical legend as well by using the CAD tools and the text tools. We'll go ahead and close this up for now, but you can always access it again by going to your project browser, and here under your CAD details folder you have your electrical legend. Simply double-click to open it up. The next thing we want to do is work on the framing for the building. I'll go ahead and close the project browser and the library browser, fill the window with the building, and then we'll go up here to the active annotation set and select our framing annotations. That'll take us right to our framing layer set.